morning. Today we're going to talk about doing photography from a kayak. Now, I'm Bill from coolwildlife.com, and the number one reason I hear why people don't want to go out and do photography from a kayak is because they're afraid of tipping. They're afraid of putting their gear at the bottom of the lake, and that's a valid concern. I get it. I have a friend actually who put $10,000 worth of camera gear to the bottom of a lake because he tipped. So this morning I wanted to talk to you about how you can get out on the water in a kayak and do it safely and actually be comfortable doing it without the fear of tipping. Okay, so the first thing you want to talk about, I think, is the kayak itself. If you get yourself a good kayak, and I'm talking about a very stable fishing kayak. So this one is a Wilderness Systems Attack 140. 140 meaning a 14-footer. They also make a 12-footer. Jackson makes some excellent kayaks. I'm going to head you over to my website, coolwildlife.com. I'm going to have a list there of the kayaks that I recommend and all of the little tricks and tips and tools we're going to talk about today. I'll have a listing there for you so that you'll know what Bill has, what's in Bill's kayak, and you can go from there. It'll hopefully be a guide for you that you can use in terms of what equipment you need to buy. So let's start. The kayak itself is a fishing kayak. It's designed to actually have you stand up and cast in it. I don't stand up when I'm doing photography, but knowing that I can stand up in this kayak is a big relief. And I tested it in the summer with my swimsuit on. I got out and I started rocking it and standing up and standing in it and so on and so forth, and it didn't tip. So you can feel comfortable when you're sitting in the seat that no matter how rough the water gets for me, and I'm on the big Rideau, it's a big lake, the water can come up, a foot, 2 foot waves. I don't fear tipping this kayak, so I feel good about that. The other thing I want is a very nice comfortable seat. The kayaks I've had before had plastic molded seats. I could sit for about 2 hours before I started to get very uncomfortable and my back would get sore, and as you can see, I'm not a young fella anymore. This seat, I can recline it in any way that I want, adjust it. It's a mesh. It's like sitting in the best office chair that you could get, and I can sit in this thing for 8 hours and I have no problem doing that whatsoever. So get yourself a kayak that has a really nice seat. This thing even reclines, for God's sakes. I don't often put it in that position. I just leave it in its standard position, but at least you can change positions if you want to change your back, and it's got adjustable straps on it so you can move it back and forth, which is great. The next thing you want to have is a comfortable and light paddle. This paddle is a carbon fiber paddle, so it's extremely light. And the other thing I will point out, the aluminum paddles, yeah, sure, they're much cheaper, but in the spring and the fall, they're heavier, but in the spring and the fall when the temperatures are cooler, the metal gets really cold, and so your hands, even with gloves on, my hands were super cold with an aluminum paddle. So I invested in a really light, good carbon fiber paddle. And you notice I took it out of these little holders on the kayak. So what I found is when I was out shooting and I had my camera in my hand and I had my paddle on my lap, a lot of times I was fiddling around, my paddle would be falling in the water, something, or getting in the way of me shooting, because I shoot from a tripod in this center console with my big lens mounted to it. So these little rollers, this kayak has a rail system that you can attach different things to, and they've got these little rollers that are really handy. You just pop your paddle into the roller and it stays there, so it's out of the way while you're shooting, which is great. You're going to want to wear a life jacket, and I just have a vest type life jacket, which is great in the spring and the fall, but I think next year I'm going to be getting one of the ones that you just pull on and it inflates, or I think when they hit the water it inflates as well. The only reason I'm doing that is cool and warmth. So in the summer when it's 35 degrees Celsius and I'm out on the water with this on, it's hot. It's really hot, and I want to wear a life jacket while I'm out on the water, so I want to be comfortable. So a good life jacket that breathes is something that I want. A dry bag. All of my gear goes into a dry bag, and so you're going to want to invest in a dry bag. They typically they'll roll, so it's got Velcro, and you roll it up, okay, and then it just clips over, and when you're done, that keeps your equipment nice and dry. A lot of times when I come out of the back bay here where I'm shooting, the water's really rolling, and so I really want to have my gear in a watertight bag. Not because I think I'm going to tip, but because the water's coming over the front of my kayak and coming into the cockpit where I've got the bag sitting, and there will be water in there. So it's important to have a really good dry bag. And the reason the water is going to build up in my kayak is because I have these little scupper plugs. So because this is an open concept kayak, I put scupper plugs in the holes. You could leave them out when you're kayaking. The water will come into the kayak, but I use these little scupper plugs and I put them into the holes so that my deck stays dry. So if the water's not rough at all, there's no water coming into my kayak, and the cockpit stays nice and dry for me. So I think those are the things that I want to cover with regards to kayaking. So it's really just get yourself a really good kayak that's stable, get yourself a good carbon fiber paddle, have a life jacket that's not too warm, get yourself a dry bag, and last but not least, when you transport this kayak, as it's about 95 pounds, it's quite heavy. It's got a handle here, and I can move it, I can lift it, but it's all I can do to lift it. And so I've invested in a set of wheels for it. You can see these things fit into the scupper holes at the back. So I pop the two little scupper plugs and I stick it underneath, and then I've got myself a set of wheels, and I can wheel it wherever I want effortlessly. If I need to get it up to the car to put it on a trailer, or I need to get it down to the water, effortless with this right here. So, and I've had the ones with the straps and all the rest of it. They come loose, they move. It really was quite a pain. So the one that I've found the best is the one that fits up into my scupper plugs. I've had no issue with this at all. It's solid plastic wheels, so you don't have to worry about pumping them up with air. A really good investment. So I will, as I said, send you over to my website. If you want to go to coolwildlife.com, you're going to go see all of the things that we just talked about. I'll list them out for you. I've got some pictures there of me in my kayak with the tripod set up, because what I do is set up the tripod in the cockpit here with my 600 millimeter mounted on it, or whatever lens I'm using at the time. And so you'll see some pictures of how I've set it up with my gear. So that's it for today. I hope that helps. I hope it'll give you the confidence to get out on the water and enjoy, because there's nothing better than 4:30 in the morning when the sun's not even up yet and the water's like glass, and you can hear the geese behind me here, and there's loons and herons and all kinds of things for me to shoot at eye level. So get out there, get yourself some really good gear, get out on the water and have some fun.
If you enjoyed this video, I'd sure appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel, giving it a like, and hitting the alert button.